The opinions expressed by the host and guests in this show are not necessarily the views of Children's Health Defense.
Good morning, CHD. It is Sunday, 23rd of November, 2025. Welcome to This Week with Mary Holland, CEO and President of Children's Health Defense, and myself, Polly Tommy. Well, Mary, we've had a very exciting week, have we not?
Quite a week. Quite a week for us, Polly.
Well, let's start off with the CDC website itself. Autism and vaccines. This is November the 19th, 2025. The claim vaccines do not cause autism is not an evidence-based claim because studies have not ruled out the possibility that infants' vaccines cause autism. Studies supporting a link have been ignored by health authorities, and HHS has launched a comprehensive assessment of the causes of autism, including investigations on plausible biologic mechanisms and potential causal links. That was the first one. Then Mary, before we comment, I'm just going to go on to the Wall Street Journal, who was very quick to come out with the headline, CDC changes webpage to say vaccines may cause autism, revising prior language. Did you ever think in your lifetime you would see a headline like that in the Wall Street Journal? Ever?
No.
Never. And then just one more from Reuters. US CDC adopts Kennedy's anti-vaccine views on recast website. The World Health Organization repeats vaccines do not cause autism. Well, that's why we left the World Health Organization, or about to. Yes, correct.
Right.
So there's all of that, Mary. And of course, for all of you listening, the article we really want you to read on this is Michael Nevadakis in The Defender with the headline, Honesty at Last, CDC says no evidence to support claim that vaccines don't cause autism. Highly recommend that as your article to read if you want to catch up on the truth of what's happening.
So exciting, right? We know that vaccines are a driver of autism. And we know that the CDC has been lying from the get-go, that they've never had evidence. And that was proven by lawsuits that were brought by ICANN, that they didn't have any science backing up their claim. And so now at least this administration is acknowledging we can't defend this statement. The statement, vaccines don't cause autism, is still on the website because Secretary Kennedy made a promise to Senator Cassidy of the Senate Health Committee that would remain on the website. So Kennedy can't take that down. But the information at this site now, Vaccines and Autism on the CDC website, goes into detail of how they don't have evidence that vaccines don't cause autism. It's a double negative. And they show the evidence suggesting that vaccines may cause autism. And there are several studies that they reference there. And then they say we are now at CDC doing rigorous research to identify the causes of autism. And we're looking at vaccines among others. So, Polly, this is the beginning, not the end of this saga. No surprise that the mainstream media is going to be pushing back and saying, Kennedy's terrible, et cetera. And that we're terrible. This ship has launched, Polly. The train is out of the station, right? The official arbiter of public health in the world, the Centers for Disease Control and Prevention, is saying vaccines may cause autism. And that is a huge sea change in what's been happening for the last 30 years.
But very disturbing from Senator Cassidy. I mean, what's going on in his head that Kennedy has to keep that up because that was a deal? I find that very dark.
Well, I don't even know that Cassidy's weighed in on this. That is Kennedy's interpretation. If you look at the disclaimer on the CDC website, it says, that Kennedy said he would keep it up. Listen, Cassidy is a huge proponent of vaccines. He's taken money from the pharmaceutical industry. And these people would like to believe that vaccines don't cause autism. That's a lovely wish. It's just not in keeping with reality, as we know too well.
No, okay. Well, more to come on this. We'll keep everybody updated as we hear. Back to The Defender with Brenda Belletti. Ultimate sacrifice is the headline here. Higher rates of autism found in kids whose parents served in the military. An analysis of Federal Health Survey data found that children in the US military, the families are diagnosed with autism spectrum disorder at higher rates than children in civilian families. Children's Health Defense scientists who conducted the study, so thank you to them, said child exposure to toxins, either directly or through their parents, cannot be ignored and must be investigated. This is Children's Health Defense scientists Carl Jablonski and Brian Hooker They examined nearly 8 years of data from the US Census Bureau of the National Survey of Children's Health. So well done to them. It's a very important work that they've done there.
Polly, it's very important. We've sort of known this anecdotally for a long time that it seemed like there were higher rates of autism in children of people in the military. So, this was a study of 330,000 children based on federal records over 8 years. And what they found is so tragic. It really is like not only have these people put their own lives on the line to represent and defend the country, but it turns out they've really increased risks for their children. So what the study found in this preprint is that moms in the military, if you're a mom and you've served in the military, you have a 46% higher chance of having a child with autism. If you're a dad in the military, you have a 42% higher risk of having a child with autism. I mean, that's extraordinary. And I think it reflects the fact that people in the military are hyper vaccinated and they are exposed to a lot of toxins, burn pits in Iraq, but lots of other, ultra processed food, meals ready to eat. They are exposed to a lot of toxic exposures. And what we know is that autism and other disabilities are linked to environmental toxic exposures. It's a little bit connected, not directly, but to the film that we're working on about people in the military, the duty to disobey. People in the military tell us whatever happens in the military may happen in the civilian population, but the military has been subjected to things that we can call experimental. I mean, that's just the truth. And this is a high price to pay.
It is. It's terribly sad. I mean, that goes again to you can detox, can you not, before you try and conceive a child? I mean, it's just we're talking about the people that served in the military, so they've had a lot of vaccines, so that is being carried on into
Well, the next generation, which we certainly know from animal models. I mean, on this, Polly, we've got a book coming out very soon by Patricia Lemmer, called Total Load Theory. And that is this idea of you're exposed to lots of toxins and they have a lot of effects on your body. And it does go through how do you detox and how do you get rid of these toxic exposures. So yes, of course it's possible. But I think this is a really important wake-up call. What are we doing to people in our military, Polly? What are we doing to their offspring?
Well, for those that are interested more in this conversation, Carl Jablowski and Pam Long will be on CHD tomorrow.
Great.
So Brenda Belletti in The Defender, unemployed and now poor. Peter Daszak sues EcoHealth Alliance after the board fires him. The disgraced former head of EcoHealth Alliance, at the center of the COVID-19 origins controversy, is suing the nonprofit for millions, alleging the board fired him without cause. He has started a new organization funded in part by the same organization that funded the Center for Countering Digital Hate. That was the author of the Disinformation Dozen list. Ooh, all the dark side getting together.
Polly, this is total dark side. I find this fascinating. This is a feud among thieves, in my view, a feud among spies and dark forces. So Daszak, who we really know is presided over the cover-up for the Wuhan lab leak, and he was working for the Lancet journal. It turns out he was working for 24 years for EcoHealth Alliance. He's been alleged by the vice president, Andrew Huff, who just wrote a book, of having been a CIA asset. They were doing pandemic related, pandemic preparedness. They were doing gain of function research. I don't think there's any question about this. He got $4.2 million over the last decade. He was also working for the USAID Predict and another USAID information. The head of EcoHealth Alliance was also on the Atlantic Council, considered widely as a CIA cutout. So this is just all really fascinating. I actually hope that this litigation keeps going so that we get some more information in the public realm, Polly. But it's just what hubris that Peter Daszak, who clearly was related to what happened in Wuhan, covered it up, said that Bobby Kennedy should be fired, that this guy would sue EcoHealth Alliance. It's just almost laughable.
And he says he's poor. Well, I mean, I wonder what that kind of poor. It's not our poor.
No, it's not our poor, Polly, I'll tell you that. He was making $444,000 a year. Unbelievable. just unbelievable.
So back to the Defender with trial site news. Data suggests COVID shots may have contributed to Germany's 2023 surge in excess mortality. A new analysis in Royal Open Science found that Germany's excess mortality surged in 2023, even as COVID-19 infections and deaths declined. The authors report that vaccination rates were the only factor that consistently tracked with the increase. Though they stress that the study doesn't establish causation. Well, we all know the truth on that.
Yeah, this is reprinted from Trial Site News. Great that this work is being done. The only thing they can really correlate it to, Polly, is the COVID shots.
This is Jeremy R. Hammond in The Defender. Google censored vaccine information long before COVID. Could it have anything to do with parent company Alphabet's deep pharma ties? Alphabet admitted to Congress that the Biden administration pressured YouTube, owned by Google, to remove videos that didn't even violate its content policies. Alphabet, which has deep ties to pharma, called the practice unacceptable and wrong, but it's still happening.
Polly, this is a really great deep dive by Jeremy Hammond, who's a huge friend to the health freedom movement. So he talks about how Google was restructured in 2015 to be called Alphabet, and then Google becomes a wholly owned subsidiary. But they also created at that time Google Life Sciences, which was then rebranded as Verily Life Sciences. So guess who's partners with Verily? GSK, Sanofi. Google buys Fitbit to collect biomedical data. Google supported the lockdowns and coerced vaccination. Google teamed up with Apple for contact tracing software during the pandemic, so-called. I mean, you just see that Google is everywhere. And one of the quotes in the article that just kind of blows my mind is the head of life sciences says, oh, we're looking for new ways to harvest biometric information and sell it to biotechnology companies. Only with the truth are we going to defeat Mother Nature. Well, guess what, guys? You're not going to defeat Mother Nature, but what a crazy notion that that's even your objective. This one really got to me.
UK government wins 2-year battle to withhold data linking COVID vaccines to excess deaths. Under a ruling last week by the UK Information Commissioner's Office, the UK Health Security Agent is not required to publicly release data that could link COVID-19 vaccines to excess deaths. The ruling, which ended a 2-year battle over the data, has led to accusations of a cover-up. This is according to The Telegraph.
Well, of course, it's a cover-up, and kudos to Dr. Dalgleish, an important oncologist in the UK, who says it's just a ridiculous cover-up. Another person in the article is quoted saying this is incredibly patronizing, and it's not going to change what we just talked about in Germany, that the leading contender for the excess mortality in 2022 and 2023 are the COVID shots.
All right, Jill Erzan in The Defender. UK healthcare workers skip their flu shots. It's a verdict on broken trust, says Russell Brand. In the wake of record numbers of National Health Service frontline workers skipping the flu vaccine, Russell Brand says that their refusal isn't a quirk of statistics, but a clear statement on years of deceit, coercion, mismanagement by governments, big pharma and international health bodies. Good for them. Skip your flu shots.
Yeah, only 37% in the National Health Service are taking the flu shots. Kudos to them. The article ends with Russell Brand, why should anybody trust them again? They haven't apologized. They haven't come clean. They're hiding the data about what happened with COVID shots. Why would anybody trust these people at this point? When somebody lies about anything, it makes you skeptical of everything they say. That's just appropriate. That's common sense. That's human nature. When people lie to you, you distrust everything they say because you know that they're willing to lie to you. It's pretty simple.
Very simple. Right, let's talk about the Children's Health Defence Conference again. This is Suzanne Burdick. She wrote a great write-up on it if you want to know more about it in The Defender. The people have had enough. Children's Health Defence sold-out conference signals growing power of health freedom movement. Children's Health Defence hosted its sold-out Moment of Truth conference. This is November the 7th to the 9th in Austin, Texas, drawing about 1,000 attendees in person. Well, we could have had way more, but we couldn't get any more in, and another 1,000 online. Meanwhile, Vice President J.D. Vance praised U.S. Health Secretary Robert F. Kennedy Jr. at the MAHA summit, highlighting the movement's growing influence over health policy. We do also have some baddie articles, and we also have some goodie articles. And this is a goodie kind of thing, I think, in the Vermont Daily Chronicle reported. Vermonters to take on Children's Health Defense National Conference in Austin, Texas. This was an incredible event that features speakers on extremely important topics, including vaccine safety, autism medical freedom, the surveillance control grid, an increasingly cashless society, and transhumanism. Talks about the importance of spellers. So spellers was a huge hit at our conference this year, and as it should be. People need to know about that. But so we did get a lot of good articles and a few weird ones, but well, that was to be expected. Actually, we could have had way worse, really.
Oh, absolutely.
Well, let's move on to Michael Nevadakis here in the Defender. Headline here: strange mix of bedfellows, big tech, big pharma join MAHA supporters at the first MAHA summit. The MAHA summit brought together representatives of established and startup biomedical officials, including US Health Secretary Robert F. Kennedy Jr., and members of the MAHA grassroots movement. Some supporters embraced industry participation, while others were skeptical at best, highly critical at worst. We're talking about companies like Neuralink, Google, Walmart, Wearables, CRISPR. I mean, nothing good can come from those corporations in my mind. And our people, Mary, I have to be honest, are not happy.
Polly, it's mixed. So right after our conference in Austin, immediately after that, this is a week ago, was this MAHA summit in DC. So this is a new venture in the MAHA world, and this is explicitly to bring in corporations. It is to accelerate private industry's adoption of the MAHA agenda. So Don Clark is quoted in the piece by Michael Nevadakis, a regenerative farmer in Vermont, very aligned with our movement, saying we need this kind of diversity. Dr. Meryl Nass, a friend to CHD, is very skeptical. Sue Peters, doctor of neuroscience, who is a fellow at CHD, says there was a lot that was left out. I was at that summit, and I agree. There were a lot of topics that were left out. Tony Lyons on CHD's board says we need to get every conceivable voice at the table. I agree with that. So it was interesting, Polly, and I have to say, being at the MAHA summit challenged some of my assumptions. So, for instance, the Neuralink CEO presented a video of 14 people who were quadriplegic or unable to speak, severe injuries with their brain chip interface, and they were able to communicate and play games and actually interact with their loved ones. It's hard to be against that, Polly. So I have to say, I think it's a good thing to be bringing in the private sector, but I agree primarily with Sue Peters. From my standpoint, a lot was left out about censorship, about free speech, about privacy, about tracking, about biometric ID, about DNA. All of those things are very important to the conversation. But this was a start, and I personally think it was a valuable start.
This is Undark in the Defender. With Robert F. Kennedy Jr. leading MAHA, will regulators finally act on toxic chemicals, or will hostile politics win out? Linda Birnbaum and other scientists say exposure to toxic chemicals has contributed to a rise in autism, and that fluoride and cell phone radiations have potential risks to human health. But will their vision to protect human health by regulating toxic chemicals gain traction? Or will it founder under the weight of disputed evidence and cross-cutting interests and hostile politics?
We have tremendous regard for Linda Birnbaum, who's been a very important environmental scientist for many years and used to lead the National Institute of Environmental Health Sciences. And I think we know that we don't think the EPA and the Department of Agriculture are moving as quickly with a genuine MAHA agenda as HHS is, and that's frustrating. But I'm remain cautiously optimistic, Polly. It's very hard to turn around institutions like, the American federal bureaucracy. It is a mammoth job.
It is. Well, for those of you that are confused about all this MAHA stuff, because there's loads of different, well, not loads, there's 3 or 4, isn't there, different MAHA sections, if you like. Suzanne Burdick's broken this down for you in the Defender. Who's who of groups that bear the Make America Healthy Again slogan in their names. It was born when Robert F. Kennedy Jr. endorsed Donald Trump for president, is now incorporated into the official names of 4 groups and 1 federal government initiative. It really is a great breakdown for those of you that want to understand. the MAHA
Yeah,
movement?
it is a great breakdown and just really simple, Polly. There's the official commission, which was created by a President Trump executive order. Not clear if that's going to do anything further. But out of the Kennedy campaign for president, developed MAHA Action, which is led by Tony Lyons, MAHA Institute, that's led by Mark Gorton. Both of them are actually on the Children's Health Defense Board. There's also a MAHA PAC that probably will get more involved by the midterm elections 2026. And then as of 2 weeks ago, there's now this MAHA Holdings, which is really about launching the MAHA agenda in the private sector.
Okay, Brenda Belletti in The Defender here. BBC editors block story on latest fluoride science over scaremongering concerns, former reporter says. A former BBC health correspondent said the editors repeatedly blocked his efforts to report on new research and legal findings, questioning the safety of water fluoridation. Largely out of fears of the scaremongering, the newsroom refused to cover the issue, even after major US court ruling. It's censorship that misleads the public. So the BBC is just
really bad at this point. Outrageous. I'm glad that story comes out, that the BBC is not trustworthy.
EPA accused of protecting itself, not public health, as water fluoridation battle heats up. Attorneys for Food and Water Watch and Fluoride Action Network, in a landmark fluoride case, accused the EPA of trying to protect itself instead of protecting the public. The outcome of the EPA's appeal of federal judge ruling ordering the agency to address the health risks of water fluoridation will shape federal oversight of community water fluoridation and also determine how much power citizens have to force regulatory action when scientific evidence emerges. That's quite a lot of words there, but bottom line, Mary, is...
Well, bottom line is, this is important. So the Environmental Protection Agency has appealed to the Ninth Circuit Court of Appeals a fantastic judgment that found, based on the National Toxicology Program study, fluoride's bad for babies. It's bad for you. There's no benefit to drinking fluoridated water to your teeth. That's a myth. The only possible benefit of fluoride on your teeth is to put it on with like a toothpaste. Otherwise, there's no benefit, and it harms babies. It lowers IQ. So after that judgment in 2024, federal district court, in July 2025, or maybe it was earlier in 2025, I forgot the district court date, but in July 2025, the EPA appealed that decision, not on the substance, but saying when this citizen's petition was filed, the National Toxicology Program report wasn't out. And so therefore they shouldn't be able to rely on it. And there's questions about the standing of one of the plaintiffs. It's outrageous, Polly, that they should be appealing this. And Michael Connett, the lead lawyer on this, now with Siri Glimstad, said, EPA, it's not too late for you to withdraw your appeal. It's so scandalous that in the era of MAHA, EPA would be appealing this decision. But it has. So oral argument is set for early 2026. The only upside of this, Polly, I am confident that the Ninth Circuit is going to confirm the lower court's decision here, is that then this will be decisive. Maybe the EPA is being pressured by the American Dental Association and by the sugar industry, and they felt like they couldn't appeal it, and they're just going to let it go to the Ninth Circuit to, set the standard. But the really exciting thing is, once I expect the Ninth Circuit will affirm the lower court decision that fluoride is bad for you, they will then set new rules to lower fluoride standards across the country, or even get rid of it. And since the original decision, the trial court decision, 60 communities have already taken fluoride out of their water. So again, that train has left the station. Very exciting that we're getting rid of fluoride, even if it's slower than we'd like.
One thing at a time. All right, this is interesting. This is the Alliance for Natural Health International. It's in The Defender. From processed foods to antibiotics, why childhood constipation is surging. Childhood constipation is now one of the most common conditions affecting children around the world. Experts say poor diet, low physical activity, and disrupted gut health are driving the surge, but simple lifestyle changes can restore balance and improve children's well-being. The reason I'm interested in that, Mary, is when we were on the bus, we heard so many stories after the MMR, particularly of this. I think vaccination plays a huge part, and the Gardasil girls as well. So the teens as well, having great problems with their bowels, if you like.
The brain and the gut are totally connected. I mean, this story is kind of shocking, Polly. In the UK, In the last year, 45,000 children were hospitalized for constipation, hospitalized. And the rate of constipation hospitalizations has increased 70% since the last decade. I mean, this is horrific. And, one of the things that's also something we've looked into, Polly, we haven't really taken it to the next step. It was that many children with autism who are vaccine injured, a lot after MMR, they have terrible constipation and they take an over-the-counter medication called Miralax, which is polyethylene glycol. And polyethylene glycol, if you have a sensitivity, can cause psychotic breaks. It can cause really, really serious mental disruptions. And so, this is a big problem and it leads to other problems. So I'm with you that, certainly as they suggest in this article, like more fiber, fruits, vegetables, whole grains, lots of water. I mean, that's at least a first step in trying to overcome this.
Yeah, vitamin C, but then we're not giving out medical advice, just saying.
Yeah.
All right, Jill Erzen in the Defender. Pfizer, Triz Pharma settled for $41.5 million in Texas case over adulterated ADH drugs. This defective ADH drug was supplied to millions of children on Medicaid. Investigators say the companies concealed manufacturer failures and ignored federal warnings that the medicine was compromised. This is terrible.
Polly, this is your home state now, Texas. It is terrible. And kudos to the Attorney General Paxton for bringing the case. But Polly, this is Pfizer. Pfizer just, ran the whole pandemic of COVID. Every show on mainstream media brought to you by Pfizer. And here they are settling a case, meaning they acknowledge that they did something wrong. $41.5 million exploiting poor children with tainted drugs. I mean, why do we trust these people? Why is the president shaking hands with Albert Bourla? I don't get it.
Why are we medicating children for ADHD? The whole thing. And remember Brian Hooker's book with Bobby Kennedy, Let the Science Speak? In that book, it was saying that the children that do not have the vaccines are much less likely, if at all, to get.
Polly, we just saw that again with the Henry Ford data. I mean, children that aren't vaccinated have so much lower risk of neurological harms, including autism, including ADHD, including bipolar, including apraxia, including all of these, tics, many neurological problems are just so much lower, if non-existent. For instance, in that Henry Ford data, there were no children among the unvaccinated with ADHD, none. So they couldn't even come up with a ratio because it was zero.
And then there's the other thing. I just want to say this, having been around unvaccinated children recently, that other people with their vaccinated children think the unvaccinated children need medication because they're lively and they're running around, they're asking questions, especially the boys.
Yeah, they're active.
We've forgotten what a child is supposed to be.
The idea that a child is supposed to sit still for 6 hours a day behind a desk is insane, Polly. It's just insane. It really is. It's tragic.
We need to get back to the old days.
Yeah, I'm with you.
Playing in the mud.
Yeah, I'm with you.
Suzanne Burdick in the Defender. California woman wins right to fight proposed Verizon tower 100 feet from kids' home in Nevada County in California. This California woman won this right to intervene in Verizon's federal lawsuit after the county blocked the company's plan to build a 13-story cell tower near local homes. And Verizon responded by suing the county. Residents say the tower threatens children's safety, poses fire and structural risks, and would harm the neighborhood's property values. Well, they're certainly right on all of those things, actually.
Well, I'm glad that she's been able to now intervene in the case. This is why, Polly, we have our campaign with all different groups in the electromagnetic radiation challenge space, 704 No More, because the Telecommunications Act, the federal law from 1996, I believe, says that, the telecommunications companies do not have to take account of health or environmental concerns of the local constituents of the community or the county or the state. That's insane. I mean, they do not have to take account of the health. There's 4 children who live within 100 feet of this proposed 100-foot cell tower. Those children could develop cancer. Those children can have migraines. Those families can have heart palpitations. Their property values are going to plummet. Why shouldn't those people have a choice in whether or not that cell tower goes in? So I'm very happy that this woman, Kristen Phelan, who's doing this really on behalf of the children, that she's really been now at least able to be a voice in this lawsuit. That's good.
It is good. Well, that's our news for the week. And the big takeaway this week is you cannot really say that vaccines cause autism because there's no science to back that up. Not credible.
You can't say that vaccine, it's a double negative. It's a drag. You can't say that vaccines don't cause autism.
Right, there you go.
You can say vaccines cause autism, which is the honest to God truth.
Yeah, well, anyway, but main thing is, everybody, you were right. You, the parents around the world, were right all along, as we knew, and it's coming out. So we fight on at Children's Health Defence. So from Mary, and I'll see you tomorrow morning on Good Morning CHD, but from Mary and I, pray big, stand firm, never settle.
Never settle.
I'll see you tomorrow, Mary. I'll see you next week.
Bye, Polly.
Okay, so tell us your name, please.
Darla Krug.
And you are?
Jerry Krug.
And you are? What's your name?
What's your name?
Yeah.
Jason.
Jason, how old are you, Jason?
Just turned 17.
Just turned 17. It's lovely to meet you.
You gonna sit close to me?
Okay, so you've headed this, that we have to stop giving vaccinations to Down syndrome.
Absolutely.
Down syndrome.
They should be viewed as dangerous until proven otherwise, which is what Dr. McCullough has stated, and he's right.
So tell us what happened, because I can feel your passion, and this is why you're sitting here now. Do you want to warn people? Tell us what happened and why you're in this situation.
Well, I had questioned vaccines when my third daughter was just an infant and she received the DTP shot. And they gave her a giant syringe. It looked giant to me. And I asked them, well, she's so small. She's an infant. And they said, well, it's the same for everyone. I said, for even an adult? And they said yes. And that was the last vaccine I got. So I started asking questions. And immediately I saw a shift in our medical care because we were questioning the vaccines. I wanted that safety data, even when I didn't know what I was asking for. But I just wanted the assurance of how do we know this is safe. And fast forward until his birth, I knew very resolutely that I was not going to vaccinate him. And it's been we've been in this battle for a long time now, for him 17 years to avoid vaccines. And they usually lump everyone into, one procedure, one ideal for especially during COVID and for the COVID-19 vaccines. And I said, well, that's not logical. That's not science. That's not medicine. And so especially Down syndrome, because Down syndrome is a complex immune system disorder. And I really didn't dive into that science really and start reading the science until right before COVID. It was actually when Inslee of Washington State, Governor Inslee, removed our right for the MMR to refuse the MMR, I started reading the science. And it was really alarming. And so the more I asked questions, the more I was shut out of these conversations, that his health care had suffered. There are periodic tests that you perform for a child with Down syndrome, like a sleep study would be done at 4 years old, and we didn't see any of that. In fact, we had to push for a sleep study because we were trying to get out of these masks. He has a long history of respiratory issues. So first, the masks right away was my red flag. I'm like, no, they can't universally mask everyone because he has respiratory issues. It doesn't make sense. And even our doctors, it was just they were following policy and nope. And so we were shut out of our community. We were shut out of healthcare. All during education, because we refused it. We wouldn't put it on him, knowing the issues that he's had. And he's had most of the issues that are common to Down syndrome, but it's a small portion of children with Down syndrome that are in the sensitized group, which means that they're born with heart issues and cataracts, and all of these put you in a more sensitized group, and that's the group that we're in. We're in that 3% this doesn't happen to you. And so, of course, I'm asking all these questions, and the more questions you ask, the more you are ignored. So when the shot came out, and I knew it was coming, I had already questioned vaccines up to this point, and I said, I know what this is, and we've talked about it before. For us, what the doctors did was we went around and we started asking. They had these mobile clinics all around Spokane, and we got some footage of just asking the regular, just a very basic question, which is this safe for Down syndrome? For anyone with Down syndrome, is this safe?
Contraindications.
Right. Well, that's what they said. The doctors would tell us in clinic or out of clinic, there's no contraindication for Down syndrome. And I said, well, that's for lack of data, because we know right now they fast-tracked this vaccine, they skipped animal trials, and that's significant for the Down syndrome community at large. First of all, they're the first people to apply to be on the endangered list. This happened in 2018, before the pandemic hit. So the numbers are already so low, and this complex immune system disorder would be cause for more stringent science, more answers to really prove if something is safe or effective.
If the goal was to actually help the population.
If that was the goal, exactly. So my position was, well, how do you know this vaccine is safe if it wasn't tested on a Down syndrome mouse model? And that's when they would say, well, there's no contraindication, implying safety. And if you're not really thinking about this, or thinking about it fully, you might take that and go, oh, they said it's safe and effective. But relative to COVID, I mean, we were told children with Down syndrome had 10 times the risk of dying from COVID. So fear right off the bat. And then they weren't part of the trials, which is a federal code. For any group that is not part of the studies, the trial studies, then it's a federal law that they cannot be forced to take this vaccine. And of course it's not them being forced to, it's the parents. We are to give informed consent on their behalf, and we're not given anything except just take it. Just wear the mask. Just take the vaccine. And I said, well, if they're 10 times more at risk of dying from COVID because of their immune system disorder, well, then they are equally at risk for a reaction to this vaccine. But this would not be known because they have denied any reaction from this vaccine. And when you're talking about an individual with Down syndrome, they present already with respiratory issues and heart issues. So it could easily be blamed on the diagnosis instead of the vaccine. And so we've lived in kind of a state of fear for him during this whole time, for the whole 4 years. I mean, it's been nothing but fear. Governor Inslee was threatening to remove him from our home if he tested positive on a PCR test. So we were not just avoiding like the masks or the vaccine, we were avoiding this test, And then during 2020, they passed SB 5185. And if you look that up on page 4, they talk about giving authority to give informed consent for vaccines to the school nurse. And so we knew at that point he couldn't return to school. So he hasn't been to school since this whole thing started. And it's been kind of a tough road, but we knew we were on the right side of things, saying that people need to understand what's really happening here, because if they are not protecting the most at risk among us, our most vulnerable citizens, then what is the plan for us? If you don't know your history, then you don't know the answer to that.
Additional pressure came in during the mandates as it related to school, and being that the 5185 gave the power of consent to the nurse
with no protections for anyone with a cognitive disability.
So we were given additional pressure at the school system level for truancy, for not just not being able to not.
They pursued us for
Yeah.
truancy because we wouldn't send them to school.
But you can homeschool.
We had to declare
Yes.
that in order to avoid that particular
Well,
truancy.
and I didn't do that initially because I was pressuring them. I was like, why don't you prove to me this is safe? You are vaccinating children on your campuses, and I don't feel safe. There's no healthcare plan that would assure me that this isn't going to happen to him. You know, if you, and they had all kinds of pop-up clinics. They did it all over. Most of the school districts did that around Spokane. So, you know, during this time, of course, I'm going out and I'm protesting and I'm trying to tell parents and trying to warn people, as many people as I can. Made him a website. I'm not a web developer, but I was trying to put whatever I could out there to send people this information. Like, just question it, because there is no safety or efficacy. People with Down syndrome do not react or do not create antibodies through vaccination like some people might. And this is well established at the NIH. In fact, there's over 70 years of established science. And I very early on, I was so thankful for Robert Kennedy Jr. because the first thing that he said that I just held on to was there's a big difference between established science and the scientific establishment. And I said, that's it right there. That's it right there. I mean, no wonder they're shutting him out. No wonder he's really, I'm so thankful for him. His family has fought and championed for the disabled for a long time. And I was like, he needs to know this. My fear is that Down syndrome will be extinct in the US like it is in Iceland, like it is in the Netherlands. Other countries that are actively euthanizing children with autism and Down syndrome, and this isn't publicized, this isn't front page news. This is all what happens behind the scenes. And we've asked for help, and I think most people don't see the fact that this is genetic discrimination from a different perspective.
Do you know people with Down syndrome that have taken the COVID shot?
Yes.
And how are they doing?
I don't know because I haven't heard from them again. I know of someone who other family members got very ill, got heart complications, and also had children with Down syndrome. And at some point, leading up to trying to warn people, leading up to the fact that they chose to get this vaccine anyway, I think I just lost heart. I almost didn't want to know. I didn't want to know.
And it's a divisive issue, so
it is. We have
friends, family.
We lost friends and family, yeah,
Knowing
because of our
anybody
position
that doesn't agree with the same position,
Yeah.
or takes the narrative as it's served to us. If you don't agree with that, then
I think everybody
isolation.
suffered from that.
Yeah, right.
We found our tribe, that's for sure.
Yeah.
What else do you want to say? Because it's very important, your message.
mouse models, testing.
Right. I would say that there are only two ways that we know anything about Down syndrome, either ethically or unethically. And ethically would be to test on a Down syndrome mouse model. The models that have been used in our country for a long time has been the T65. And over the pandemic, Johns Hopkins University Medicine created the most bioidentical mouse model for Down syndrome called the TCMAC21 mouse. And that mouse copies over 93% of the genome, which means that it's the most accurate Down syndrome mouse model, but they didn't use it to test this vaccine. So for them to tell us that it's safe and effective without even doing the most basic science to determine that, then when they say that there's no contraindication for not just the COVID-19 shot, but any shot, if they say that it's contraindicated, it's for lack of data, not because they have obtained safety data from, or safety markers from that data.
Normal, required medical testing.
Right. And when I looked into that further, I was shocked to find out that in 2004, when they had said they completed the Human Genome Project, and everyone celebrated it around the world, they actually left 8 or 9% of the genome unsequenced, and they called it junk DNA. And quietly over the pandemic in 2021, it was actually completed, and there was no fanfare. It was just quietly completed by a private company, and I don't remember who it was. And I thought, if anyone knew this, would that make them question this even more? Like, they are experimenting on a genetic level, not just with people with Down syndrome, but all of us. And they don't know what they're doing, clearly, because as far as I understand it, to sequence the human genome is to put all the letters in order. But that's kind of like learning the alphabet and not knowing how to read yet. So they really don't know what they're doing. And so it made me wonder if they learned just enough to create weapons or to do something nefarious. And that, we're commissioned by God to defend him, to protect him. He cannot speak for himself. He cannot say no. And thank you, buddy. It makes me afraid for his future, because it all hinges on vaccines, and they have not been questioned. And I view it as a kind of silent genocide because no one sees it, and they're not going to see it until this entire population is extinct in our country. It's going to be too late. And we really need help. We need help to make this become more known. Because I love these people. We're not just here for him. We're just for any parents of children with Down syndrome. That 5%, right, that didn't get vaccinated. They came out with a study that 95% of parents gave their child with Down syndrome the shot. And I thought, I turned to my husband, I'm like, there's only 5% of us left who have questioned this, who have lived in fear for what could very well be not just mandatory, but knocking on your front door.
Threatening to take your kids away.
Yeah.
Restrict them from school and public access.
So we think that there should be a lawsuit against the United States for genetic discrimination. They need to be added officially to the endangered list to protect them, make it illegal to inject them.
Thank you. Thank you for telling our story.
Did I miss anything? There's a lot.
There's a lot. I mean,
there's a powerful message.
Any other questions?
There is one thing that I would like to add, if that's okay. Over the pandemic, Jerry did get COVID. He got it pretty bad, and we had to take him to the hospital. And I went with all the understanding of what remdesivir was, and I had written out kind of a statement because they weren't going to let me stay with him, and I was so afraid he would lose his ability to make a sound decision without me. I thought I was going to lose him. I was sitting in the parking lot for 5 hours just praying that he would be okay. And at that time, I was afraid that we have this, he's at such high risk for this. And I thought, if he were to get it, I'm facing the very real possibility that I would have to watch him die in my arms at home, because they had blanket DNRs across the United States. Scott Shara, his daughter, Grace.
Grace. Yeah.
I knew that was going to be his fate, and I did not want him to die in a cold hospital alone. So I knew that it was possible that if he gets it and he dies, that was our decision, and we made it very early on with, no help from our local representatives. We've taken this information, all of it, to our state representative, our senator, and heard nothing back. And we've taken it to everyone and tried everything until we just settled back, and knowing that God is ultimately the judge after all this is over. And like, even if they were held accountable, what kind of reparations there's no reparations big enough to undo what they have done, not just to Jason, but all of the children. And I think at this point is all that is left is repentance. Like, we're talking about Down syndrome is worldwide. It comes in every color, every sex. It affects every population. And so every country, every leader, every doctor is responsible for what has happened.
Is there any website people can learn more about this?
I put a website up for my son. It's Jason Krug, Krug, .org. And I haven't done much with it, but it was just a place, thank you, buddy, a place to at least direct people to some of the information. It's so vast,
discovered.
it's so much. It became very, very overwhelming. So,
Well, people can go there and study more.
yeah.
Thank you. Thank you. Thank you. Good man.
I love you.